So basically what we're looking at this time, so we've got Sanctum's cruise to Tasmania, but I'm trying to make it not say, I'll try and introduce some other, every one of our trips has been different, and this one had its own little intricacies, and you put a few of the trips together and as you'll see, there's a lot of places to stop all the way down, and it's just huge. You don't have to do the whole thing all at once, but away we go. So basically, the idea was we were getting Sanctum ready, go down to Tasmania. Thought we'd spend the winter down there, do the maintenance we need to do, which we haven't done much of yet. But probably September we'll take the boat out of the water, and then meanwhile we've got to get the rigging done and a few other bits and pieces. But we had to get there first. So, like all things, preparation's always at the last minute. It doesn't matter how much you do. The weekend before you go, you find yourself up the mast doing the anchor light, which decided to it's sort of been on and off for a while, but it decided to go off. So thought I'd better get around to doing that. So that was the weekend before. But other things also, like we were leaving on a Saturday, and for weeks and weeks and weeks before, you all know Sydney, it rained 1 or 2 days in that time. and it was like a chocolate sewage out here. It was just like a cup of coffee in the water. So for months I couldn't get the divers to go down, and then it all cleaned up. It was all beautiful, and the water tidied up a hell of a lot. Had the diver booked to go in on Thursday before we left on the Saturday. Wednesday we just had those huge torrential rain, and it was chocolate again the next day. It was maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, but by Thursday they wouldn't go in the water again. So we had to leave Sydney with a dirty bum, so we didn't get everything done that we wanted to do. But and then we started. The other thing that we did differently this time was we had a crew that were not seasoned offshore sailors, and but they're friends of mine, ours. I went to school and grew up across the road from mate Steve, and so he and his wife came down from Brisbane. They'd expressed an interest in coming down. They're contemplating buying a catamaran because they've got a place on Macleay Island, and so they thought, oh well, it's an opportunity. Yes, sort of once in a lifetime. He used to sail skiffs. His family had a J24. They've still got it in the family for years and years. So sailing wasn't a problem, but they'd never had a long offshore sail at all. So that was something that was different. So come Saturday, we're off. So I think we had a couple of nights on the boat before we left. So the boat was on the marina here or wherever and floating around, so at least they were a bit used to the boat moving. And we headed off, but the day we headed off, it was probably one of the worst seas that we've sort of sailed in. It was like 1.5 meters from 3 different directions. And there wasn't any wind, that had happened before, but there was a little bit of wind, but not much. But this sea was like, Jill, the washing machine down at JB, well, it was worse than that. It was as bad as that, right? But if not worse. So that was their introduction to sailing as the first day. So the aim was we were going to go down to Jervis Bay. Sorry, the maps are off the side, but can't do anything about it. So Sydney to Jervis Bay, that was the plan, but not too many hours out of Sydney. This is Michelle, and she was up there, and Stephen was basically unconscious elsewhere, and they were down out for the count. So we thought, okay, well, JB's a fair way away, we're motoring all the way, motor sailing. Sail's just there to stop it flopping around, but basically motoring. And we thought, we better take pity on them and let's go into Shell Harbour. We'd always heard about this mythical Shell Harbour marina that was supposed to have been built 20 years ago. And so some of you went down after we went down, but we went in and found that it's actually a pretty neat place. So Shell Harbour Marina, this is the facility. So the marina starts here, marina office is just on the side, goes out. But to get in, you're actually going along like a channel and coming in behind a breakwall. And it can be doing whatever it likes out there, but this is so far from it. It's pretty amazing. And that's Frank's boat there, I think.
Yep.
And that's probably us there. So we ended up being next door to Frank's boat. We were talking to Frank on the way down, so Frank Taylor. No, Frank Taylor. Captain Cranky. F2. So if you see articles in the Compass Rose, that's Captain Cranky. So Frank. F2, yeah. So F2 is not Cranky. But anyway, so we rang up Frank and said, we're coming into Shell Harbour. And he said, oh, I'll come up and meet you, because he wanted to pot around on his boat. I think he wanted to drink our beer, I'm not sure. But anyway, so he came up and met us there. And it was really good, and went on about what we should do with, as far as seasickness tablets, how to take the seasickness tablets, and you take, as soon as you wake up in the morning, take one or two or whatever it was.
Before you go to bed, take one.
Well, take one
As
before
soon
you
as
go
you
to
open
bed.
your eyes in the morning.
Yeah, take one.
Yeah, and he said, and I repeat, as soon as you open your eyes, not when you get up and go to the toilet or anything, but just open your eyes, take it. Yeah, that was his next instruction.
And then, as you're going out through the heads or from the breakwater, take one then. And he had a few different concoctions that he passed on. But so
These
these guys came.
they were so sick. They
but-
were sicker than we've ever seen
Yeah,
anybody.
but they bounced back pretty quickly in
They
Shell
did.
Harbour. Once we were inside and everything, sort of got their colour back. And but yeah, they were a little bit delicate. And the next day they were a little bit delicate, and we thought, oh well, okay, well it's only a short trip. And this is so there's a tap, sorry, just on the Shell Harbour. The marina starts there, so that's a marina office. You've got a pub right next to it. And then at the back of that, there's actually a big Woolies or Coles, or what is it? Big supermarket, big Woolies behind there. That's a fantastic facility.
And the Buffalo. And the Buffalo.
Oh, and a bottle too. Yeah.
Bakery.
There you go.
Yeah, and a chemist.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of little block of shops, but there's a big supermarket as well. So it's actually a really good setup. So no fuel though, was it?
Yes, there's
Oh,
a
there's
fuel
fuel
dock.
there?
Yes,
Oh.
there's a fuel dock as you come into the channel.
Oh, is there?
We went there and fueled up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a fuel dock there too. There you go.
There will be a slip as of November.
Yeah.
For 150 tonnes.
They haven't been advertising it because they're at the moment just sort of up behind here on the other side. There's some demountable bathrooms. Their amenities block is being built.
They're better than ours.
But they're better than our toilets.
Yeah, I know. But they should. They reckon they'll have that finished, and they're actually going to start plugging it in the boat show this year.
September they said they
Yeah.
would finish their releases.
So we armed ourselves with Frank's regime of drug taking, and we headed off the 36 nautical miles from Shell Harbour down to Jervis Bay. We had a couple of southerlies coming, so we thought we'll go down to Hole in the Wall, which is down the bottom down there. And we went out. The seas were calmer than they were the day before. I've never seen this as calm as it was. So we had the washing machine all the way down to Shell Harbour, and then we had pretty good seas all the way. So these guys, I think Michelle got a little bit queasy, but not really sick. Stephen was fine, and so basically after that we kept up the drug regime and we had no problems. So it's just that first day, it really was a shocking introduction to sailing.
Did the drug regime have any other impacts? I mean, did they sleep all the way? or-
No, they're awake.
Did you put them on the helmet at all?
Yeah, they went
Well,
on
that
that.
didn't help.
Oh, not on that first day, they couldn't do shit. they were terrible. So, so basically we motor sailed again pretty well. Like this whole trip is a 250 litre of diesel motor sail. mostly motoring, not much sailing. So it was a very quiet trip to get down there. Not so quiet when you're sitting inside. But so we went down to Jervis Bay, stopped at Hole in the Wall. This is Murray's Beach. Hole in the Wall's just around the corner a bit further. But went for walks. I spent those 2 days we stayed down there, you know, morning and afternoon. I'd dive under the boat and try and get some of the crap off the bottom. So, till I got too cold, I thought, fuck it, I'm getting out. And yeah, but it really is a lovely place to spend. So, and now, if you want to do short hops, you can do Port Hacking, Shell Harbour, Jervis Bay. Makes it really easy, and you don't need to think about, oh, I've got to do the 84 miles or whatever it is to get into JB. So that's Sanctum out wide, a couple of other boats in there. The weather was fantastic while we were there, and you know, because we were protected from the south, the wind had come over, but you know, as long as the sun was shining and walking in the forest, it was really nice. So we had 2 days there, so that really helped the guys get acclimatised a bit further. And then we thought, okay, for the next one, let's go down to Bermagui. Anna and I, Kelly and I had a bit of a slip. Kelly and I had been into Bermagui on our way back last time, for the first time, and it's a lovely little marina as well. And they've got fuel on the end of this wharf here, so you can actually get fuel there, which we didn't really know about. So we were actually parked here, and then we heard there's fuel over there, so we walked around there with jerry cans and then got a fishing co-op trolley to help take them back. So we actually refueled there, and thought, okay, well, I'd rather do it there than to muck around at Eden with pile moorings and getting the truck down and blah blah blah. Let's do it here in a bit more civilised manner. So the passage to JB Bermagui, once again, motor sail. Occasionally you get a bit of a puff and you know, you get some advantage, but it kept along. There's always backup, so we weren't sure whether or not our crew would still be alive. So you always have outs, and coming down to get to Bermagui, you've always got Bateman's Bay. Browley Islet is in there. There's a north and south anchorage off beaches in there, which we've used before. Haven't actually been into Bateman's Bay. You've got to go in a fair way, unless the seas are right. Hide behind some island or something. Yeah, and the same with Eden as well. If you don't go all the way out there, you can save a bit of time. So, and Bermagui is a really great place. So the
Good
fuel
pub.
wharf's there.
Yes, good pub.
Yeah, well, that's the view from the pub when you're sitting there. so you go to the pub, have a chicken palmy or something, and so that was, yeah, that's right, because you guys were with us when we came back. So it's a lovely place and it's a nice walk to walk up along, stretch the legs after being on the boat.
Evan, from Jarvis Bay to Bermagui, how many nautical miles was it? How many hours did it take?
It's 89 nautical miles, and divide by 6.5 and you get there. I actually didn't bring the logbook up, and I was thinking, oh, I should have brought the bloody log and started writing all this stuff down, but I got the mileages, so it's 89 miles, so it's usually,
12 hours.
yeah,
12 to 14
yeah, when did we start?
early.
Yeah, we must have started just after sunrise, or around sunrise, and then got there in time to get the sunset. We were on land. And this is in April, so late April, was it? Something like that. So we're in Bermagui, and we're trying to, well, we're working out what to do. You'll see some photos later, we were sort of between a couple of weather systems, and it was going to be pretty benign the whole way. So when we were at Bermagui, we fueled up, and we thought, okay, let's not bother with Eden unless we have to. We'll just go and then either go to Flinders Island, see how it goes across the strait, or go down to Wineglass Bay or Ediston Point at the northeast corner of Tassie. So we had quite a big weather window and there wasn't a lot happening weather-wise. So yeah, this is coming down. So this is Gaybo. There's Bermagui at the top. So you've got 45 nautical miles from Eden. If you're going in there, and if you go in there, then you've got to go in around here, and then you've got to stop down here and go around. So that's quite a bit. Or we could keep going, and you could stay at Gaybo. If you get stuck down there, you can actually stop either side of Gaybo. Not many people do. There's another place just in here, Batangaby Creek, which if you don't want to go into Eden, it's actually a good place because it saves you not only the 12 miles from Eden, it just saves time and stuff. So people will sometimes sit in there. It's fairly small. I think you get a couple of boats in there, but it's quite a good place to sit and hide while you're waiting to come across. I think it's called Batangaby Creek.
And that's to hide from the southerlies?
Yeah, hide from the southerly. Yeah. When we came down last time before this, we met a guy who keeps his boat in Tassie, got a little yellow trimaran called Kiss My Ass, and he left in the morning or the night before and came down here to wait for the end of the southerly because it just gives you like about 3 hours extra advance getting across, so you can. Yeah. And not that he's slow, he's like a little rocket ship, but we had days of weather and we thought, okay, fortunately my maps are going off the side, but this is the top, that's Flinders Island there, and that's the top of Tassie here, Gaybo at the top there, and yeah, it's 250 nautical miles from Bermagui to must have been to Flinders Island, I think, or 200 from Eden. We ended up going directly to Wineglass Bay, and that was 360 nautical miles. So we did the 360 in one go. This is when we left Bermagui early in the morning. This is Gaybo Island Lighthouse. When we were going down off the bottom of Tassie, so it took us, that long to get to there, and then we kept going after that.
And what speed were you maintaining? 6.5, 7s?
Yeah, 6 to 6.5. Just, we've only got.
Your crew was still fine.
What's that?
And your crew was still fine.
Yeah, crew were fine. Yeah, there was no wind and there was very little wave. It was very smooth. So hence the decision to go all the way. But we sort of actually came in a bit closer to Flinders than my wiggly line. But we always had an out. We could go in here, we could go in there. You actually go up the top of Flinders and go across. Others, what we haven't done yet is gone across to Wilson's Promontory via Lakes Entrance. It's a long way in. It's 150 miles to get across to Wilson. But once you get to Wilson's Promontory, you've only got like 40 miles and then 26 miles and then little hops down behind the Flinders Island. For this one, with the weather we had, it was pretty much.
Wow.
So we sort of had, I think this is, I don't think this was actually a video, but there were two fronts. There was one sort of behind it, and there was one in front of us, and it was all just moving in the direction we were going. So we're just sort of sitting in this drifty bit. But with a bit of planning and a bit of fuel, we figured we'd get there.
Did you consult Bannon on this occasion, or did you?
Who?
Bannon.
No, just use Predict Wind. So had a Predict Wind with the Iridium Go. So just check that every 6 or 8 hours and see how it pans out. But it was just like, oh, there you go, that's what it was like. It was a video. So
See much wildlife?
no, very little. No whales.
No.
A couple of dolphins in a few places, but it was pretty quiet and uneventful. Just looking back up the other way. And if you really had a quick eye, you'd see we fixed the wind vane, the wind turbine thing, where we tied it so it wouldn't run. So. But that's what the weather was like. Pretty much all the way across. And then the target, so halfway down the east coast of Tassie is Wineglass Bay. So that's North Tassie, so we're sailing down along here. We just stayed 2 or 3 miles offshore and we actually had quite a reasonable run down there. Not a lot of wind, but it was in the right direction just to help push us along. And then you come around the corner and it's actually quite a long way in here. It's like 3 or 4 miles to get in there. But when you get in, where we anchor sort of here. It might be a bit further over. This is the bit that sort of gets out of the swell. But the swell does come in. If you've got a southeast swell, it does come in. It can get a bit rolly. But when you're tired, you've done a long passage, it's a great place just to drop anchor and stop. You have the lichens, algae, same as the Bay of Fires, so that's why it's called the Bay of Fires further north, is because of that. Well, it exists down here and then all the way in Coles Bay and all around there. So this is, you can't quite see it, but on the very edge of this picture up here, there's a bit of blue water. So that's Coles Bay, which is the other side of this peninsula.
Set the saddle.
Yeah, so you can walk across over to there if you want to. So it's a great place to stop, gets a bit affected by swell. We spent 1 night there, I think. But we were wary that there was quite a substantial southwesterly change coming 3 to 4 days ahead of this. So we wanted to, that's coming in, so that's Steve, obviously you know the other 2 jokers, coming in around into Wineglass Bay. And that was us at anchor. That's like the backdrop. This is later in the morning when it'd been raining, so there's a bit of water on there. But then we went ashore. You can see that even from that promo shot, that was the Wineglass Bay shot, which came from somewhere, the water is still that colour. It's just magic. And that's on a grey day. But we came in ashore, we dinghied up to the south end and successfully got ashore without getting wet. And then went along, and you get the cray boats coming in, they drop anchor, have a sleep for a few hours, and then go back and do their pots again. So we stayed there overnight. This is the next morning, because as soon as you get there, you're knackered, so everyone just stops, has a feed and a drink and celebrate. Yeah, we crossed Bass Strait, all that shit. And then next morning, get out and stretch the legs, go for a walk along the beach. It's quite a long beach, a couple of K walk along the back. And the sand's soft in places, so it was really hard. So, hard walking for me anyway.
You use your 4-wheel drive leg.
Yeah, had that one on. So, we just stayed the 1 night there, had the walk the next morning, and then in the afternoon we thought, okay, well we've got to keep thinking about moving, and it's a bit rolly here. Let's go around the corner to Shooting Passage. So there's Wineglass Bay at the top. We just came around here, that's Shooting Island underneath Freycinet. Just 11 miles, so it's just a bit of a toodle down there. To throw the pick down there, have a good night's sleep, and get an early start the next day. And basically, you're then coming down, you can go either side of the island, Rye Island, but coming down, and then you've got a decision point here, which is, do we do Denali Channel and cut through and go through a channel to get through to Hobart? Cuts about 70 miles off. Or do we come down around Tasman Island?
Can you get through there with your draft?
Could possibly do it at a pinch, but we have to have the highest tides and they have to occur between 8 and 5 in the day. Otherwise the guy won't open the bridge. So it's now time. Used to be, you ring them up and they do it, throw a can of beer, you can't do that anymore. Between 8 and 5, they're the only times it opens. And we need the high tide. 2 metres is we're 2.1. We could push our way through a bit of sand, would have got some of the barnacles off the bottom. But the tides were with us, so there were no high tides high enough during the day that we could worry about, so we just went. So overnighted in shooting, and this picture, about halfway across here, there's a little rock called White Rock. Field of Fock, which is White Rock or something or other. And we got there at 7:30 in the morning and just fantastic seals waking up and starting to, whole families with little ones and big ones, and the gannets starting to wake up and everyone sort of stretching their legs. So we were there about 7 o'clock in the morning, I think. And just after that, we waited until we got to the island, we went around close so we could get some really good photos to show you. And I can tell you they're really good, but they're on the iPad on Sanctum. We think, because we couldn't find them. So this is just after that. This is probably the best wind we had on the trip. We actually had about 10 knots. Might have been 8, but we could put the spinnaker up and turn the motor off, and it lasted for about an hour. And then the wind just died. And then we went a bit more north, a bit more south. But yeah, it wasn't strong enough to do anything. So we put it up for a little while, and off we went. And then it was back to the iron mainsail. So as I said, Denali cuts off about 70 nautical miles. So this is Shooting Island. That's Bear Rock. If you
See the bear.
Yeah.
That's it. We haven't actually climbed up there. We've never sort of stayed long enough to do it. But that's that was just from the anchorage where we were anchored that night. And then we head off down to the passage. So where we were on, well, I could go back, but this is actually right down. If we go down past Maria Island, then you're going down the Tasman Peninsula, and there's a bay called Fortescue Bay just on the other side of that, and that's one of the places where we like to stay, and we were going to stay, but we had this southwesterly was coming, so we did whatever that number of miles was, and from the top. So 72, yeah, so we left the top, we did 72 nautical miles, which took us around to Port Arthur. So we would have stopped in Fortescue, but we were mindful of this southwesterly. It was quite strong, and it was going to get quite nasty. So we thought, we've got reasonable weather, the swell's not bad, let's get around the bottom of Tasman Island and give Steve and Michelle a good look at Tasman Island in a better view rather than trying to smash. And then if you have the big southwesterly, how long is it going to be for the seas to go down to get around the corner? So we spent the time, we came down sort of into the entrance to Fortescue Bay on the other side of this, motored along the other side, and then came down. So we hugged the coast and just motoring, just to have a look at the thing. This is known as the Candlestick, and that's the one that the climbers come down and climb. So they go out along the bottom and then it's not connected. And they climb up there, and we saw a documentary of some guy that fell off and smacked himself up. We saw the documentary of him actually going back after he put himself back together and it's climbing it. So we've come past once before, and there were people sitting up the top there sort of waving at us and stuff.
What I've been neglected to tell you guys was the stunt he pulled on the other side of these, and like there's this little area to get through, and he told everybody that was where we were going. We were cutting through there, and he just hauled, but he put the throttle on and went straight for it. And I knew he was going to do this, but I actually then thought maybe he decided he was going to do it.
great to see. And then you go a bit further south, and then you've got Tasman Island. So Macquarie, or whatever the lighthouse up the top, Tasman Island Light. There's a passage through here, but for first timers, it's always good to go around the outside. It's where the Hobart boats go, so you can say, oh,
You got the
did the same
attitude things.
Buffalo girls.
yeah,
Pipes or whatever they call it.
it wasn't really this sunny. This is actually ridiculous. It's probably on the iPad, the other ones, but this is from our first trip down in 2017. But it was grey and gloomy, and it gives a whole new, different look to it. But it really was. It's spectacular at the best of times.
It's worth the trip.
So we went round the corner, and we drop anchor in. So we've gone round the corner, gone along a little bit, and then we go down into Port Arthur. So you're coming down from up here. Port Arthur's in there, the ruins of the historic prison. You come down through here, and this is called Ladies Bay. And it's just a fantastic.
Is that where those speedboat things launched from there?
No, they're actually further down.
All right.
And this time when we went, which I didn't notice last time, as we came down here, there's now a shitload of fish farms down that way as well, which weren't there before. And you can't see them from here, but when you're out in the main part, they're further down. So there was one other little Swanson 40, 38 or 40? 38. You sure it's 38? Yep.
Nice.
Parked there, so it was just the two of us. So we sat the sou'wester out here, and we had, yeah.
Evan, it wasn't called Benito, was it?
It wasn't Jeff's, no.
No, okay.
No. But he knows them, like he knows everyone that's got a Swanson on it, or anyway. The sou'wester came through. We get some wind. You obviously don't get any waves because there's a southwest down here. So it's pretty well blocked from the trees. But we woke up during the night and you could hear the hail hitting the boat. So it was a pretty nasty little thing. That was the first night. I think that was the first night. And then the next day, the sun was sort of half out a little bit, on and off. And Steve and Michelle went to Port Arthur. Kelly and I worked for a while. And I was starting to get a bit of range anxiety because we hadn't had fuel since Fermagui. So Kelly and I got an oar and put a drum between the oar and the two of us, and we walked up. It was about a kilometre up to the Port Arthur service station. There's a big eco resort down through here, and you can sort of walk up the roads through that to get up to the shops. And just got enough 20 litres just to be safe. But Ladies Bay, a fantastic place, and it doesn't really show that well on here, but you can see the bottom. It's fairly deep, but it's just so clear. And when we were there last time, or a couple of times ago, it was 29 to 30 degrees at Port Arthur. Kelly and I had spent the day there. It was so hot. It's the first time she had a voluntary swim and stayed in the water for any length of time because it was so hot outside. So Steve and Michelle took a few photos while they were at Port Arthur. Even though the weather's sort of on and off, it passes really quickly. So you might get a shower, but it's gone 10 minutes later, and you get a bit of sun, and you might get some hail, and you might get some snow. But that was their day at Port Arthur. And the other reason that we chose Port Arthur rather than Fortescue, not only to get around the corner, we've got internet here, so Kelly and I could do some work. Fortescue doesn't have any internet or phone reception, or very poor. You can get a phone call in there, but it's not that crash hot. So we stayed there. And then after that, so here's Port Arthur, so we came around here, and it's a fair way in. So you go in. We've got Port Arthur there, that's where they launched the boats from, for the speedboat, for the peregrine tours or whatever they are. And then we came back out. Cape Rail's another one of those spectacular rocky outcrops, like the ones down this side, down here. And once we got to about here, we had 12 to 15 knots north, must have been nor'easter, I think, maybe a bit more north, and the tide was coming in, the swell was coming in, and we had a cracking sail all the way up to Hobart. That was our best sail of the whole lot. Just finishing it off on a nice note, and also the fact that it meant I had more fuel left when I got to the petrol station at the end. So we just went straight to Cruising Yacht Club of Tasmania and filled up there. So ended up I had about 80 litres in the tank, so it was I had plenty in reserve, shall we say. But whether we could use that 80 litres, I don't know, because I've never run the tank yet, so not going to. So. But yeah, so we got to Cruising Yacht Club of Tasmania, filled up with fuel, and straight away went around to, and we'll come back to this, but this is the first bit, so getting to Hobart. And if we look later, we'll go through, but we came down, spent a couple of nights at Kettering, and then this is where Sanctum lives now. Just got a mooring just in there, and the Signet Sailing Club's just in this next little bay. And they're building a new public wharf at the moment as we speak, which is, looks pretty robust.
So is that where they run the race from, the Signet race that you do?
Yeah, the little sailing club there.
So it's all in that bay, in that area?
Well, they have a race weekend, or the Signet Regatta, and there's 3 races involved in it. There's one from Hobart to Kettering, Kettering to Signet, and then they have Regatta Day, which is around the buoys in Signet Harbour, or Port Signet. And for the local boats, they have a boat parade. This is a boat parade, I think. They have a race around there somewhere or other. So they sort of have 3 feeder races and have a little weekend. And then I'll talk later about, we came back up to Hobart for the long weekend. This is the duck hole in here in North Broome. So when we came back up for the long weekend, we came in through here, stayed here for the night, and then sailed up the next day. Talk about that in a minute. But meanwhile, the Iron Pot. So you get to the Iron Pot and you think, oh, we're there. Yeah, you've got about 2.5 to 3 hours to go before you get to Hobart. But it's just the beginning of the journey, so that doesn't show up very well, but that's a little lighthousey thing that's on a rock there. So that's coming in through there. And then this is the mast marina, the freebie. So there's no power, but they do have fire hose there if you need a bit of water. Constitution dock just in behind us. And you can stay there for, if you ring them up, you can stay there for a couple of days. It's supposed to be 5 hours, but unless it's a really busy time, they're pretty good. You ring them up and they just say, yeah, no problem. Or if you don't ring them up, they come down and say, next time, ring us. So you ring them the next day and say, oh, I haven't got my part yet. Okay, no worries, I just didn't want you staying there for a week. You're right. But it's right in the middle of Hobart, so you're right there. This is Elizabeth Wharf apartments, and at night time, it's a mill pond. It's just so quiet. It's, and that's more often than not, that's a Tassie winter, is a mill pond. And not a lot of wind, but when it does come, it comes. And this is last Sunday at Derwent. So we came up for the long weekend. I said we'd sail up. We got a berth out here on the end of the Derwent Sailing Squadron, and put the drone up and just took a photo up off Mount Wellington. And that's, you just don't sort of picture Australia looking like that much. So, and our beautiful days that we just walked. You walk into town, Battery Point's just, this is Sandy Bay. Battery Point's up here, and we just drop over the other side here in Hobart. So, really, and a good facility. They've actually got fuel here now as well. That's a fuel wharf as well. But the depth was a bit iffy, so we went to the Royal. But yeah, huge facility. And to get there, when we were sailing back up the channel, we Yeah, it was blowing a southerly, and we had over 40 knots on the gauge when we were coming up the channel, with quite a swell behind us. And we had a little bit of head sail out, and the motor ticking over at 1500 revs to get the rudder going, and we were doing 12.5 knots. We just pick up on the waves, and that's when we went in the duck hole and had a really good night's sleep. And then you've got about a 4-hour sail, 3-hour sail from the duck hole up to here, and there was a 60-odd foot Herreshoff catchy thing, and with a fair bit of sail up. We had a reef main and a head sail out. It was about 15 to 25 knots. It come in gusts, and we just had a cracking sail all the way up there. It was beautiful. So it was, we didn't use any fuel. So this is our mooring in Cygnet. So you wake up to these misty mornings. The guy that built this took 13 years to do it, 13 to 14 years. He built it. It burnt to the ground, he had to build it again. So the 13 years he built 2 of them. And you know, it's so nice. You can sit here and you can sail through the clouds. Because it's just magic. And we get it, you know, when if there's a westerly blowing, I haven't got any good shots. But we've got the shore down through here, probably. Where's that boat? Yeah, this is probably the shore, and so we're really protected from southwesterlies. We're even tucked in a little bit behind a headland so that the swells coming in on a southeasterly don't get us when they get the boats out in the main Cygnet mooring area. We're tucked in close onto what's called the Lymington Road, and that's where we be. And then we meet some suspect characters who invite us to dinner and give the chef
You worried?
courtesy of Frank. So. And we thought we actually, this was a few weeks ago, we went for a motor up to Petchy's Bay, which is up the Huon River a bit, and we haven't done any fishing at all. We thought, oh well, we'll give it a go, and we must have got about 10 little flatheads. They're all undersized, but it was like the first fish we caught. So whoa, this is really good, throw that one back. And so we had a bit of fun, and then we made it back home. But that was Sunday a few weeks ago, and this is when before Frank came back to the warm weather. The Last Supper. Brilliant. So, yeah, they very kindly allowed us to come over and cook them dinner. I think that was that night, wasn't it?
Yeah. Very good.
And I think that's it.
That's it.